Hello, hello, hello. And it is both a sad day and a good day. It's a good day because I'm doing UFC 299 predictions. And this card is, I will say this, there are a couple different types of cards that the UFC puts on. This one is one of those ones I file under, not entirely for me, not entirely, because realistically speaking here, if I pull up the card, which I don't know why I did not have already up, we get we get a main event that I am a little bit negative on. I don't think Chito Vera should be getting a title shot, and I don't have a fandom of Sean O'Malley, so that's a little bit weak on appeal. Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis is going to be a great fight. I want to be clear on that. I honestly expect this to be dope, but like from a analytical standpoint, it's hard to really get not excited. It's not the word. Invested, maybe, just because it's such a jump for Benoit Saint-Denis that it's like, can he do this? Maybe, but like I don't know how to watch his other footage to come up with like a good answer for that. And then further down, you have MVP versus Kevin Holland. Not really interested in that. I am excited for Burns, Del Maddalena, Peter Young, Yudong Song, Curtis Blades. Jailton Almeida is not the fight I would have made, but it does make a certain level of sense. Gamrot versus RDA, Munoz versus Phillips, Pereira versus Oleksiejczuk, Vergara versus Almabayev, and Wood versus Moros. Like, these are all fights I'm pretty invested in. I'm ready to go, and it's unquestionably good. Like, that's the thing. It's like, in no way is it a bad card. It's just a card that at the top I'm having a hard time fully investing in. So if you are hyped, you are psyched, you are selling your soul for Sean O'Malley to win, congratulations. And I do mean that, but like I'm having a hard time getting there with you. But it's a good card. It's a very, very, very good card. It's a sad day though, because not necessarily today, but like earlier this week, Bloody Elbow got sold and basically murdered. Like it's still there, but it's going to be. It appears like it's going to be one of those AI content mill aggregate sites. It's not so much that that's depressing. It's we don't need that. And Bloody Elbow formed a nice little niche of, I thought, actually really good independent journalism. And to be clear, if you didn't, or that's not your thing, that's fine. That's awesome. That's not awesome, but like that's fine. You do you. Like everyone is allowed to like the sport as they will. But like I always found that the anti-Bloody Elbow conversations were always just kind of just toxic. Like, you know, the most common thing would of course be the fighter pay disputes, which always happen, and the defense of the current UFC model is just, it's dumb. It's dumb. It's for one thing, it's a bunch of guys who will be like, well, you don't want to have a real conversation about this. How about we talk about the state of fighter pay in the PFL and one, and how much worse it is than the UFC. And you give the standard boilerplate response of, well, they pay a higher percentage of revenue to the fighters. They are currently in the red. Therefore, where exactly would increased fighter pay come from? Because there is no profit to reduce. There is no money that is unspoken for. The way the PFL would be able to pay more would be to take a loan and just basically give it to the fighters, I guess. Like that would be it. And they really don't have a comeback after that. They don't. Or the dislike of the political reporting and so on. And people are like, oh, of course they fired everybody when they took over. That's what they did. They fired everybody. The reporters were garbage. They'll relitigate the Ian Kidd thing, which, I'll be clear, Ian Kidd, monster, CP, is basically the topic there if you're unaware. Don't dig into it I would not recommend digging into it. But once it was found out, once he was charged, he was asked to leave the company. And maybe this is just a unique thing because there was a company I worked for that had somebody arrested for CP. Like, it happens, unfortunately. Like it's not like you meet somebody who's into some sick stuff sexually that and like your alarm balls instantly go off. Like, that's not how it works. So the fact that that keeps being relitigated is a bit silly, particularly given that like it's usually trying to defend the UFC, who hired I forget which East brother it was, Cody or Tyler, anyways, one of which had already a CP related conviction. They also employed a couple other fighters who later on became embroiled in that same kind of like legal issue. So the idea that like Bloody Elbow should be held to like this higher standard than the UFC, and in fact they have been, because at least they didn't hire someone with that particular legal problem already, is a bit silly. Anyway, so moment of silence. R.I.P. Bloody Elbow. You're still there, but you're not what you were. Okay, I think that's enough of a moment. This is an audio format, after all. Let's talk about the fights. So at the main event, let me just move this over to the big screen here, so I can read it a little bit better. So main event, Sean O'Malley defending his title against Marlon Chito Vera. Of course, this is a rematch of a fight that Chito Vera won, but it should be mentioned upon rewatching it, like you kind of remember the leg injury, right? You remember the leg injury. You remember how O'Malley wilted in the first round. You kind of forget that O'Malley was kind of beating his butt before then. That the range, the combinations, the kicks, surprisingly, like it's kind of weird to think like that Sean O'Malley's kicks were a problem for a guy who just like, broke Sean O'Malley's leg. And like O'Malley had that leg injury against Andre Sukumtal as well. So like it's kind of weird that like the kicks would be actually like his kicks are like, his legs are the chink in his armor, but also like probably the best part of his offensive game. It's just kind of a weird dichotomy there. But yeah, O'Malley was kind of winning up until that point, and let's be honest here, O'Malley has been very, very impressive in recent times. That win over Peter Yan, close as it may be, and a lot of people scored it for Yan. If I recall correctly live, I did also score it for Yan. But like very, very good. The knockout of Aljamain Sterling. Granted, much more about how Sterling approached the fight pretty poorly, but still got the job done. And then for Chito, it's not been great lately. Like, if we roll back to 2022, so the last 2 years, you have the Rob Font fight, which, as much as it was a dominant victory because he hurt Rob Font like multiple times, like he had the beauty of like just like, all right, I can get outlanded, but I could just wonk you and you'll go down and you'll get hurt and whatever. And we know Rob Font's not completely done, so that win holds up pretty well. But like, it is also a fight where like Rob Font was able to find a lot of ways to hit him, like a lot of ways through the defenses of your boy Chito Vera, and there are some similarities to what Sean O'Malley can do there. Like he's a 5'11" fighter, Font's 5'8". They have similar reaches. They can abuse Vera from a similar range. They're also both known for having a pretty good jab and being able to build combinations with their hands. And then you have the fight with Dominic Cruz, which again, a fight where he's fighting the ghost of Dominic Cruz. Like, let's be honest, how old was Dominic Cruz for that fight? I should have written that down. Age. I require age. 37-year-old, Dominic Cruz. A fight that a lot of people had Cruz up on the cards before, Vera knocked him out. And then you had the Sandhagen fight, which was, do not let the on paper split decision fool you. It was very one-way traffic and very much a fight that I would not recommend rewatching. And then the victory over Pedro Munoz, which got him this title shot. Although really what got him this title shot is that Sean O'Malley wanted him to have this title shot. And the UFC doesn't really want Merab Dvalishvili near the title, I don't think. People are going to be like, how do you know that? What is your substantiation? I'm like, well, they keep throwing roadblocks in his way, and they gave Chito Vera a title shot instead. So I could be wrong. I could be mistaken. But I do believe that I think at this point we can safely say that the UFC is not really in the Merab business. He's kind of in the John Fitch spot where like it'll happen if he keeps winning. The Bilal Muhammad spot was another example. It'll happen if they keep winning, but they're not the goal. They're I don't even know if they're playing B. In fact, in Bilal's case, I think he's like playing D. um, anyways, so I mean that's the interesting thing is like for the most part, one would think this is going to be a stand-up affair. Neither of these guys really chase takedowns particularly much. And actually, to be honest, O'Malley is not a terrible grappler. He's fairly decent, fairly competent. Chito Vera is a guy who ironically came in as a grappler, but like that went away pretty quickly. He likes to throw hands. And it's going to rely a lot on like Chito Vera being able to have power because I think that, like I said, O'Malley can work at range. O'Malley can put together combinations, good volume. He's a more active fighter, consistently speaking. Vera will take moments off. Vera has a very non-round winning style. Like his way of winning a round is to hurt you badly enough that it makes up for the fact that you outlanded him like 2 or 3 to 1. And I don't have a lot else to say. Like I'd like to Jones this up with a lot more analytics or whatever. But I can't. What we have here is the taller, longer, more active fighter. Probably the better defensive one in Sean O'Malley against a clubber. It's sort of a classic matchup of the boxer versus not necessarily the brawler, but like the slugger, the dude with like all the power in the world. And I do have to take Sean O'Malley. I think he looks very, very good right now. I think he is the best version of Sean O'Malley that we have ever seen, which makes sense because he's 29 years old. He's entering that prime. Vera's only 31. Like, it's actually kind of weird that Vera is only 2 years older. But, like, at the same time, I think the discovering that Chito Vera had the cheat code of just bonking people, I think actually harmed his overall style. I think it slowed him down. It made him less of a round winner. It made him reliant on bonking people. Sort of similar to like the transformation of George Masvidal at 170, where like you had like this entire career of George Masvidal being like in these really close nip tuck fights where like he'd be very defensively sound and you know when he felt like he was losing, he would fight incredibly hard, and he would lose like these close decisions because he would take his foot off the gas, and then he like describes like, hey, wait a minute, I can actually just like flatline people, and like his game plans like starts to be like, you know, wait for the flying knee, wait to redo the Askren moment against the wrestler, as opposed to like having a game plan that like takes their elements away and wins rounds. It feels like Vera's kind of going through that same thing. And while it's obviously possible for Vera to knock him out, it's obviously possible for O'Malley to hurt his leg again because it has happened twice. Like, you know, there is a reason that being 5'11" at bantamweight is, you know, not honestly a really ideal idea. It's a lot of skipping leg day, if you know what I mean. And I can obviously see that happening, but like I do have to give the nod to O'Malley. It's kind of a lot like the Michael Bisping versus Dan Henderson fight from way back in the day, in the sense that it's not as bad, mind you, because like Chito, like if I'm ranking the world's bantamweight population, Chito's still like top 10, whereas like Henderson was like, I don't even know if he was top 20 when he got his title shot against Bisping. But it's like the same rationale. The old veteran heavy hitter, although in this case only 2 years older, has a win over your shiny, in this case, almost undefeated fighter. In Bisping's case, there were a couple of the losses. But you want that revenge, you want that storyline, and you're probably going to get it just because while Chito is absolutely still in his physical prime, I think that things have gone wrong as far as developing himself as a fighter, as a round winner. And I think at the very, very, very top of the division, which title contention certainly is, you do need that aspect. It's bantamweight. It's you can't be Derek Lewis at bantamweight. That's I think the key aspect here. You know, Derek Lewis. Well, even Derek Lewis, like at heavyweight, couldn't win a title with just being a bonker. 135, that's going to be just that much harder because the level of athleticism of the technicians is just going to be so much higher, so much better. their ability to push a pace is going to be that much better. So I've got O'Malley by decision because Vera is exceedingly tough. O'Malley is a minus 275 to minus 305 favorite. Vera is plus 210 to plus 240. It's a bettable line on either side. By the way, usual gambling spiel here. Bet responsibly. I feel like that's all it is. Bet responsibly. People lose money on MMA way too much. There you go. And that's it. Sports betting in general, but like MMA in particular. I will say that the anti Chito's daughter crew, you guys are disgusting. If you're not aware of Chito's daughter, there's some medical issues there that involves facial structure and so on. One of the things he really, really wanted to do when getting to UFC was to pay for the medical care that would allow her to live a more normal life. And so there's a lot of pictures of the two of them together. He seems like an excellent father. Who knows behind closed doors, but like publicly looks amazing. And there's I don't know. Like I am entirely okay with fighters trash talking each other. They signed up for it. I get it. I understand. But similar to like when Colby Covington was, bringing Leon Edwards' dad into this, I don't like family being brought in. Unless the family kind of brings themselves in, introduces themselves, I guess. Like, I don't know. You could possibly work like Sam Alvey's wife into trash talk without me feeling really, really bad about it because she's, in the corner. She's part of the process. She's part of the team. That sort of thing. There are other examples of this. Brian Caraway, Misha Tate would have been another example of that. Like where the person in question is not just part of their life, they're part of their career. Maybe you could get away with it, but even then, I don't think I would try. I would restrict myself to the person I'm fighting. There you go. That's it. All right, on to the co-main event, which is Benoit Saint-Denis versus Dustin Poirier. I don't have a lot to say here because the issue is that as much as I'm excited for the fight, and I think it's going to be a banger, I think it's going to be like Dustin Poirier is a man who is, I don't think I could find a boring fight for Dustin Poirier. I could be mistaken. But like his fight with Justin Gaethje, both of them very, very fun. His fights with Conor McGregor, very, very fun. His fight with Chandler, very, very good. His fight with Charles Oliveira, very, very good. Absolute war with Dan Hooker. The Khabib fight is interesting enough. The Max Holloway fight is excellent. The fights with Eddie Alvarez are phenomenal. You put them in there with anybody, and it's going to be very, very entertaining. Like there's just not really an exception to that. And Benoit Saint-Denis very much seems like the same kind of guy. His fights with Matt Frevola, very, very cool. Thiago Moises was pretty cool. Ismael Bonfim was pretty cool. Gabriel Miranda was admittedly a bit pointless, but still fun. Same with the Nicholas Stoltz fight. They're just, two guys who were very, very outmatched. So I am looking forward to the fight in that, but it's very, very hard to make it, analytically interesting. And it's hard to break it down in a manner that isn't just complete guesswork because it's like Benoit Saint-Denis is coming from having beaten Matt Frevola, Bonfim, that level of guys, those mid-pack guys, those maybe sniffing the 15th spot in the rankings type of dudes. And now he's fighting a guy who has been a long-term title contender, a long-term top 5 guy in what is generally reviewed as the most deadly, the most stacked weight class in all of MMA. And it's like, what do I do here? There's no prior opponent who has the boxing talent of Dustin Poirier, has the violence of Dustin Poirier, has the toughness of Dustin Poirier, has the well-roundedness of Dustin Poirier. Poirier's really only particular kink is the fact that he loves to pull for guillotines on takedowns and stuff. And it's I don't know what to do with this. Sure, Benoit Saint-Denis is a solid top grappler. He's a big, powerful, very, very comfortable striker, even if I think that there are like a lot of technical gaps there. But like he's confident. He's got the durability to make up for his lack of defense at times. And he's got very, very big power. Like he could storm the castle here against Poirier. It's just, I don't know what fight to point at that, or even a moment in that fight to point at that be like, you know what? Benoit Saint-Denis could totally do this to Dustin Poirier. And as a result, I have to pick Poirier in what should be a very, very good war. But like I have proven footage of him being like a good boxer. I don't really have that with Benoit Saint-Denis. I have proven footage of him being pretty well able to deal with kicks. Like it's not necessarily a problem. Benoit Saint-Denis is a good kicker. I have footage of him, out grappling and out wrestling people like Michael Chandler, who have higher accolades than what Benoit Saint-Denis has. Could Saint-Denis be even better than that guy, than Chandler? Absolutely, but I don't know how to envision it. Like I just don't. The greatest performance of like grappling that Benoit Saint-Denis has in his career is like beating Thiago Moises. Like it's just such a different world. It's such a different level that it's really, really hard. So I'm gonna go with Poirier to win by TKO, probably because Saint-Denis is defensively a little bit reliable on his durability. He is a guy who, admittedly, he's only been stopped once, and it was up a weight class against Elijah Zaleski, and people are holding that against him. Like, people really, really, really hold that against him. It was a short notice fight against a guy who was notably bigger than him. And I think anyone who's like using that as a huge negative for Benoit Saint-Denis is just like sleeping on Elijah Zaleski. Elijah Zaleski knocked out Sean Strickland, if memory serves. He beat him. I know that. I forget if he knocked him out. But like he beat Sean Strickland, your, middleweight champion of the world. He's unquestionably a bit of a, frankly, just a bit of a monster. He's a guy who's, beaten Curtis Millender, Max Griffin, Lyman Good, Keita Nakamura, Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Not that it means much. He's also a guy who's lost to like the Leech and Muslim Salikov and Nicholas Dalby. It's a weird career. It's a weird career. I was talking about this the other day about flyweights, and like we were talking about specifically Tyson Nam and how like Tyson Nam beating someone or losing to someone is like this it's this nothing burger that like, what does it mean? Because like Tyson Nam, it's like can knock out anyone at flyweight or bantamweight, frankly, but can also lose to anybody because he doesn't really impose on the fight. Like he has losses due to you don't know. And if you went and watched the fights, you'd be like, which one of these guys is the future UFC fighter again? like that's just the nature of the beast with that. And like Zaleski, kind of the same thing in that regard. Anyways. So yeah, I am taking Poirier. I am probably going to bet money on him because he's a plus 164 to plus 190 underdog. Saint-Denis is a minus 205 to minus 230 favorite. You guys are crazy. Don't get me wrong. You're not crazy for like betting on Benoit Saint-Denis, but like betting on Benoit Saint-Denis at favorite odds. I don't know. Then we have a welterweight fight between Kevin Holland and Michael Venom Page. This is on the wrong spot in the roster. I mean, like Burns and Della Maddalena should be above this. Hang on, let me quickly refresh the structure of the card and see if this is changed. Nope, it isn't. All right. I am not nearly as invested in this fight as a lot of people are because when it comes down to it, I've never been a big fan of Michael Venom Page. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of flashy stuff that's really, really cool. There are knockouts on his record that I will mark out again if he did it again. I would mark out if I watched the replay. But like, other than that, really, he is a guy who has traditionally beaten guys who I don't think of as tremendously good. There are a few exceptions to that list. He does have a win over Douglas Lima. I do respect Douglas Lima. He has a win over Goto Yamamuchi, but it was a 26-second injury leg kick TKO. Derek Anderson is not a terrible win, but like those are and like the ghost of Paul Daly and like David Rickles. Like that's your top 5 wins. It's just not that great. And when people have, and admittedly, he's only lost to Logan Storley and Douglas Lima. That's pretty good. But he is a 36-year-old man, pardon me. He's my age, who relies on being really, really flashy, really, really athletic. There's not and being long. There's not a great base of like even striking. And he can defend takedowns. He can do that. But it tends to shut down everything else about his game. It takes everything in him to stop takedowns. And he can grapple a little bit, but it's not great. If you want like you want what's he's an attraction fighter, but he's an attraction fighter you have to book against people who are going to let him be that attraction fighter. Like if you watch that Logan Storley fight, one, don't. It's terrible, but you'll see it repetitively. It's not that you come out of it with like, hey, Michael Venom Page got his ass kicked, because a lot of people thought he won, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. But it's like, okay, but like that's what happens when he faces somebody who is going to make him MMA. It's just kind of dull. It's kind of boring. Now, fortunately, they've got him up against Kevin Holland, because Kevin Holland, this is sort of Wonder Boy Kevin Holland 2.0, because that was a fight where Holland would even have Wonder Boy down and not follow up on it, hurt his hand, and then like crumbled later down the stretches. But it was really a really fun fight, but it was like so dumb, so very, very dumb. So if Holland fights a smart fight and just uses his own like physicality, because like again, he's 6'3", 81 inches. Logan Storley, for comparison purposes, is 5'9". So one would think that if Holland did want to like, force clinches with Michael Venom Page, he could do that. He could takedowns. He is a good offensive grappler, even if his defensive grappling leaves, and specifically wrestling, leaves a lot to be desired. But it's not like Michael Venom Page is going to capitalize on that. So like if he decides to just grapple Michael Venom Page, this is going to be a very, very short night. Even if he decides to be entertaining, though, I think he wins, because he is 6'3", same height as Michael Venom Page. He is 2 inches longer. He is very, very durable. He is powerful. He does pressure pretty well, actually. Kevin Holland's the most frustrating type of fighter, just in general. Ooh, I clicked on the wrong thing. You may hear a close it. There you go. You didn't hear anything. He is a guy who is just very, very inconsistent. Like there are moments in like a lot of his fights where he looks like a very slick striker, like where the defense is coming together, the offense is coming together, the ability to work in combination, to work off the jab is there, the ability to slip punches is there. It just looks very, very good. And then in like that same fight, he will be like the dumbest guy on the planet. Like the Wonder Boy Thompson fight is a great example. It's like he broke his hand. And you'd be like, oh, that's so bad. It's like, you look at the punch that he broke his hand on. It's like, why are you throwing that? Like even his punching form is inconsistent. He'll throw it where like he'll contact with the blade of his hand. And that's not good. That's how you break it. It's a lot of mess there. But like, I do have to go with him, because I think this is a rare chance for MVP to face off a guy at relative size parity. He's a guy who is used to having anywhere from 3 to 9 inches of reach, even over a foot at times. And Holland has a longer reach than him. Holland has a pressure game. Holland has a wrestling game to threaten him with, potentially, if he wants to. I do have to go with Holland, although Michael Venom Page knocking him out would not surprise me. Because, he is capable of incredibly dangerous moments and crushing skulls with the right equation there. And Kevin Holland is an incredibly inconsistent fighter who will probably provide him an opening at some point to land something you could call awesome or stupid, basically. So I got Holland by submission or a decision, basically. He is the minus 125 to minus 142 favorite. Michael Venom Page plus 105 to plus 115. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena, also a 170-pound fight, and another fight that I'm picking the underdog here because I'm taking Gilbert Burns. And you might be thinking, well, it's just because of the Basil Half-S fight, the short notice fight where like Jack Della Maddalena was spamming guillotines and stuff and getting taken down and put on bottom, and it really looked bad. And then it's like, that's just one fight. That's just, that's a three opponent change, triple opponent change, date change. It got pushed back a week, short notice opponent and everything. And it's like, I am willing to accept all that, but like, it kind of really points to the fact that I have not seen Jack Della Maddalena tested by a top-notch grappler and takedown of that. That's the thing, is he's just never really had it. And if you pull up the record, you can see what I mean, because it's like he's gotten good stylistic matchups. Angelos on the Contender Series, Pete Rodriguez, Ramazan Ameev, who is a guy who has some level of takedowns, don't get me wrong, but is just bad. and he liver punched him in 2.5 minutes. Danny Roberts, not a wrestling threat. Randy Brown, not a wrestling threat. Basel Hafez had success. Kevin Holland didn't really wrestle him. I think Kevin Holland went like 1 of 2 on takedowns or something. Let's see here. UFC stats. Could you please give me Jack Della Maddalena? 0 for 2. Kevin Holland went 0 for 2. And if I remember, they were not the most committed takedowns in the world. I think even Ramazan Ameev went like 50% against him. I could be wrong. Nope. 1 for 2. Only 25 seconds top control. So, he got up quick. But that's against Ramazan Ameev. This is Gilbert Burns. And it's kind of like that Benoit Saint-Denis question where, like, yeah, sure. I am sure Jack Della Maddalena has been drilling takedown defense all camp. Has been being yelled at by his coaches to forget the word guillotine even exists, to forget the idea that a guillotine choke is even part of his repertoire. Never mind. I thought I had a technical issue. I did not. Well, I did, but it wasn't what I thought it was. So I'm sure that this is going to be a far better version of Jack Della Maddalena when it comes to stuffing takedowns, when it comes to anti-grappling, than we have ever seen before, because we haven't really seen it. But I can't pick it. I wanted to, because he's a fresh face to put up at the top of the division. Gilbert Burns at his late 30s is coming down. And this would be a great moment to pass the baton to somebody new who, as much as I don't see future champion in his future, I do see like top-notch action fighter, getting a title shot at some point would be cool type of guy. I'm not going to pick him to win it, but like it's a fun fighter that I wish the absolute best for. But I cannot help but think that like Gilbert Burns, world-class jiu-jitsu player, yes, he can make mistakes on top. Yes, he can forfeit top position, but realistically speaking, this is a man with a takedown game. This is a man with a world-class grappling game. This is a man who's pretty vicious. His striking is not bad. It's not a case of Ramazan Ameev who can't strike. It's a guy who is reasonably durable. And as much as he's not looked particularly amazing lately, I'm thinking specifically obviously there's the Bilal Muhammad fight, which I chalk up to an injury, but like there's even the Jorge Masvidal fight where like he had some struggles, and like even Stephen Wonderboy Thompson not being able to finish him was a bit problematic, to be honest. But like it's just a threat that we did see Jack Della Maddalena struggle with a lot with Basel Hafez. Basel Hafez is so far below Gilbert Burns, and there just isn't a counter example of Jack Della Maddalena fighting this and doing really, really well. So I've got to go with Gilbert Burns. I'm going to go with him by... I'm going to say he submits him. Decision's also possible. Della Maddalena is the favorite, minus 150 to minus 174. Burns is plus 125 to plus 145. To me, that line doesn't make any sense. We move on to Peter Yan versus Yadong Song. This is another fight that has a lot of distastefulness with it, because like Peter Yan fans are like really scummy. And I'm not saying, hey, if you're a Peter Yan fan, I'm not talking about you, but I am talking about the guys who are like I don't know, they're a little racist. Anyways, they're making like comparisons to like, hey, last time Peter Yan fought an Asian fighter, this happened, boom, and it's like, Yeah, but that's not Yadong Song. Yadong Song is like the top of the food chain of like Asian MMA at 135. Like he is very, very physically gifted. He is a monster. He is powerful. He is fast. He is explosive. He has accuracy. He is cool under fire. We have seen him deal with adversity and do pretty well. He is creative. He has a diverse arsenal of offense, and he's training with Team Alpha Male. So the wrestling is getting better and better all the time, I would hope. Because that's the only reason to train with Team Alpha Male. All that said, I am picking Peter Yan. Yan has not looked great in his last couple of fights, obviously. There's the loss to Sean O'Malley, there's the loss to Welterweight Sterling, there's the loss to Merab Dvalishvili. And the thing that really gets to me, because that's a run of guys. That's a current champion, a former champion, and a guy who's going to be fighting for the belt, presumably against the winner of the main event here. So like it's a murderer's row. I think honestly, like it's a murderer's row is like even underselling how dangerous that is. That being said, I don't really love how he's been very, very excuse heavy and talking about how he doesn't really have to adjust anything. Like there's not, I don't need moves. I am perfect. And he just has also that like dirty side of him that like very foul heavy. Like Peter Yan is a man who read the Ric Flair book of, if they're going to let you cheat, do it. And that's how he lost the title, of course, when he illegally kneed Aljamain Sterling. So there is that concern, that real concern that like he's just like his fight IQ is just bad. He's not really looking at ways to learn from his past mistakes. He's not really looking at ways to learn to become a better fighter. And that does worry me, but he is the more technical striker, the more technical wrestler. He is a guy who builds a game plan as things go on, whereas I don't have that faith with Yadong Song. I don't have the faith that he'll be stronger as the fight goes on. I'm not saying he'll gas or lose the plot or whatever. It's just I haven't seen that adaptive nature to him, that ability to take what's working and make it a bigger and bigger and bigger part of the game. So I do have to go with Peter Yan. I am going to say that he wins by decision. I am expecting a very, very good fight. I am hoping for an amazing fight, frankly. Like real talk here. I am hoping for a fantastic bout. But yeah, I do have to give it to Peter Yan. Although if Yadong Song wins, we gonna do the song. The odds are very, very close, like they should be. Songs at plus 100 to minus 106, and Yan minus 115 to minus 20. I'm expecting a banger. This is like fight of the night material right here. Curtis Blades versus Gelton Almeida is, for one, very, very even money fight. Blades is technically the underdog at minus 105 to minus 113. Almeida is minus 110 to minus 115. I have to take Blades. Don't get me wrong. Researching for this fight, I've kind of realized that like there are very, very few examples of Curtis Blades actually shutting down someone else's offensive wrestling game, which does make me a little bit worried that Almeida can take him down. But we are talking about two guys who predominantly play the takedown game. Almeida doesn't have the power that tends to be the problem for Blades. He's not the dynamic guy who's going to catch him with one shot and put him down. So I do have to go with Blades. It's a wrestling match where the bigger guy, the actual heavyweight, is also the more accomplished wrestler. It's really, really hard to pick Almeida for me. But hey, I'll love it if it happens. Blades by decision. Macy Barber versus Caitlin. I've actually not heard how her name is pronounced now. Sermonara? Is that it? Formerly Caitlin Chukagian. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but like Caitlin Chukagian's got some stuff going on in life that like, I don't want to see someone going through that fight. Like, I just don't. Like, it's a bad headspace. She's talking about like using fighting to distract herself from the problems of life. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea at all. So this fight would have been a really, really interesting idea. a while ago, but like we are dealing with a 35-year-old fighter who hasn't fought since 2022, is going through some stuff in life, is very, very reliant on very good conditioning because she doesn't have a lot of power. She's long and she throws volume. And I just can't have faith in her being super sharp. And Macy Barber is a tank. I don't really like Macy Barber. I've always said this. Macy Barber and her dad were like one of the most annoying things about MMA. And by the way, I know I said I don't like getting family involved. Macy Barber's dad was like the classic exception there, where he inserted himself full bore into her career and the hype train around her. But I do have to pick Barber here to just kind of walk her down. I don't know what blonde fighters got in her. I don't know what's still there, and you can't pick that. So Barber walking her down, putting her on her back maybe a couple times because Barber is super, super strong in the clinch. She likes to, mix up the ground game with her striking game. And she's been looking pretty good lately. Like Macy Barber has legitimately seemed to have turned a pretty good corner about becoming the future, dare I say it. Beating Amanda Hibosh, Andra Lee, Jessica Ai, Montana De La Rosa, like quite convincingly. And her loss to Alexa Grasso is aging just better and better per day, basically. I'll say Barber decision. Chukagian is hard to finish if your name's not Jessica and Josh. Barber is a -200 to -230 favorite. Sermonara is a +158 to +180. I apologize if I referred to her as Chukagian at any point during the breakdown. It's going to happen. We've seen this before with like other name change fighters, shall we say. Mateusz Gamrot versus Rafael Dos Anjos. I just have to pick Gamrot. He's 6 years younger. Gamrot is 39 years old. His wrestling doesn't seem to be as potent as it used to be. His ability to control an opponent hasn't been as good as it used to be. Still the better striker, but like Gamrot has fought better strikers and managed to impose his wrestling game on them without too much issue. I just see Gamrot going, let's go, constantly making it into a scramble and takedown game, similar to like 2010 Clay Guida. I have a note here that says like Gamrot is not Khabib, but there is a little bit of 2010 Clay Guida in him. Clay Guida was able to win that one back in the day. He also lost, RDA also lost to like Gleason Tebow, largely because of control. Couldn't get the better of like Tyson Griffin back in the day. I know I'm getting like way back here, but like it is kind of the weird truth that like for as long as RDA has been around, he's always been not always, but like generally has been the grappling aggressor. The opponents generally cede to him at least the initiation phases of grappling. Vicente Luque, Brian Barberena, Rafael Fiziev, for sure, Hanato Moicano, Paul Felder. Michael Chiesa did not and beat him. Leon Edwards did, still beat him. Kevin Lee is like the one kind of like win here that like is like a force a grappling game on somebody, and Kevin Lee is Kevin Lee. He falls apart. And yeah, there's just not really anything else here. Really. I mean, I guess you could like say like Jason High and Mark Bocek, but by that point, you're back in 2013 or 2012. 14 and 12, respectively. Yep, I got to go with Gamrot to win a decision. Gamrot is the prohibitive favorite at -325 to -480. Dos Anjos +255 to +350. That's probably a little bit too wide. Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips. This is another really, really fun fight. It's another old guard, new guard type of situation. Munoz is 37 years old. He's towards the end of his he's definitely out of his prime. And Kyler Phillips is 28, just kind of coming into his thing. It's so weird with Kyler Phillips because like this is a man who lost to Raulian Paiva right after beating Yadong Song. That's got to be like one of the most bizarre flips. And like he never built anything off that Yadong Song because like he's fought I think only 3 times since then, if I'm not mistaken. Kyler Phillips 11-2. Yeah, he has lost to Paiva and then beat Marcelo Rojo and Ronnie Barcelos, which doesn't mean a ton. Um, in the end of this day, I'm going to go with Phillips. Phillips, I think, has the better hands of the two. Munoz has a really, 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 good low kicking game and everything, but and he's super tough. And he's got a good guillotine choke and so on. But ironically, this is kind of a weird one because, like, given that Kyler Phillips is kind of the meta of like a pace fighter who can mix in takedowns and so on, and like is a really good athlete, you would think that like there's a lot of fights to watch and be like, hey, this looks like what this fight could look like. And there really wasn't anything. Like looking through Munoz's record, it's like, is Marlon Vera that guy? No. Is Chris Gutierrez that guy? No. Is Sean O'Malley that guy? No. Is Dominic Cruz and Jose Aldo that guy? No. Is Jimmy Rivera that guy? No. Frank Yeager? No. Aljamain Sterling? No. You have to get back to like a 2017 Rob Font to find like this kind of meta fight for Munoz, which, he won by guillotine, but I just think that Kyler Phillips is a bit of a different monster in that regard than Rob Font, but we'll see. I'm really, really excited for this fight. Again, it's one of those things where like I don't have a lot to say about the actual breakdown of the fight, but I do think it's going to be like absolutely bonkers. Phillips is the favorite at -210 to -250. Munoz +165 to +200. Michel Pereira versus Michael Oleksiejczuk is going to be a really, really fun fight. But again, it's a fight that I don't have a lot to say about because it's, what do you say about this? I mean, Michel Pereira is a very, very athletic guy. He's a creative guy. He used to do like backflips and so on. And he's kind of pared that down for like a more focused on just like a controlled jab game with some flashes sometimes. He'll still spin. He'll still throw weird elbows and kicks and whatever. Oleksiejczuk is a dedicated pocket boxer, loves to hunt the body, loves to beat that down. He doesn't really represent a great takedown or grappling threat. Like he has takedowns. It's not non-existent, but he's got 4 takedowns in his UFC career, and a lot of them are kind of very accidental. Pereira feels like the better athlete of the two, which is not new for Oleksiejczuk. He's not a great athlete. He's predominantly just durable and has good cardio and will push. He's like really, really hard-nosed. But like he's going to be pushing himself into the jaws of like the danger of Pereira quite repetitively, where Pereira can land kicks, elbows, knees, punches, do his thing, work his jab. I've got Pereira by decision because his finishing instincts seem to be a little bit down these days. He is the favorite at -148 to -160. Oleksiejczuk coming in at +120 to +130. I think that's about right. We get to a 205 fight between Felipe Lins and Ian Cutelaba. I hate this fight. I don't like it. You may notice I just skipped over it when I was like going through the card and being like, I'm interested in this fight. I'm interested in this fight. There's some problems here. No, this is just a bad fight because it's not that it's going to be terrible. I want to make that quite clear. But it's that Ian Cutelaba is such a dedicated just smasher. Put him in there with guys that you're worried about cracking, that you need to test, that you need to bring a athletic freak to, not a 38-year-old guy who kind of has already had those tests. I see Cutelaba coming out like a house on fire, trying to utilize his wrestling, try to get the takedown, try to get the heavy ground and pound, do his thing, and then just getting at some point obliterated because that is what happens with Ian Cutelaba. He either kills you, you kill him, or you're Devin Clark. And we got Lins by TKO. Cutelaba is the favorite at -130 to -138. Lins is +108 to +115. There's just better uses for both of these guys. Robles Dispande? I don't know how to say his name. Versus Josh Parisian, the Cuban Olympic judo TK Taekwondo guy. I don't know what to expect about this fight because Robles is 4-0 with a combined 5 minutes and 13 seconds in the cage. Like, it's insanely low. Like, I don't think there's ever been a UFC debut outside of like a CM Punk type or the various guys they brought in to fight CM Punk, who has less footage out there, less film that you can watch. And I know you can watch the Taekwondo stuff, but like, it's just a different beast. It's a different animal. It's not comparable. They've got him in there with Josh Parisian. Josh Parisian is no one's idea of a particularly great athlete, although dude is looking lean, looking good. 2 thumbs up as a fat guy. Inspiration material. but he is durable. He can grapple a little bit. He can wrestle quite a little bit. He is somewhat dynamic in his own right as a striker, but like if he gets caught striking with Robelis, he's just gonna get knocked out. I'm gonna go with Robelis by TKO, but like I have no idea. I have really no idea. Like there are people who are like putting down fact stacks of money on this fight, being like, man, he's here, he's gonna be awesome. It's like, my guys, we're betting heavily on a 35-year-old guy who has fought dudes who have one combined fight beforehand. They have a combined record of 1-0. 4 guys, 1-0. The average there is a quarter of a win a piece. It's just I don't know. It's a bit weird. I get it. It's heavyweight. You want any kind of like exciting prospect that you can get. I'm not in any way saying do not have this fight or whatever. It's just I don't really know how to attack it from like a pick standpoint. CJ Vergara versus Asu Almabayev. I'm going with Almabayev. He has, I think, passed this test before, just not in the UFC. He beat a fighter that you may or may not remember named Zach McCoskey and another one named Chris Colettis, who are like veteran dudes. Kind of seen it all. They don't just instantly crumble like a lot of Almabayev's opponents. So I just think that Almabayev is going to go out there. He's going to force some power exchanges with Vergara, who's just not very athletic. He is going to force into some takedowns. Now, Vergara is a lot longer. He's 2 inches taller and 3 inches longer. Theoretically, he could possibly pop out a jab. He does have a jab. He does have some boxing combos. But I just think that Almabayev will get by that. It's just not an intrinsic part of how Vergara tends to win fights. He just tends to win fights by toughness, heart, grit, and his own wrestling. So he's going to engage in Almabayev's world. He is a guy who gives up his back. He is a guy who's been submitted before. I've got Almabayev by submission. I do think the odds are a bit wide, -500 to -600 on Almabayev. I wouldn't touch that. Vergara at +375 to +425. I don't know. Did I do the Robelis versus Parisian odds? -300 to -350 on Robelis. Parisian +240 to +275. If I didn't. Joanne Wood, formerly Calderwood, now Wood. JoJo Wood versus Marina Moroz. Good matchup of like 2 veteran girls that I'm going to probably enjoy. JoJo Wood is 38 years old, but she honestly doesn't seem to be in any kind of real decline. Like she can still keep up her pace. She's still durable. The cardio is still immaculate. Still seems strong. I think it's probably the fact that she was never really based on like speed that probably helps her out. Like that's just not. It's not really like you don't look back at JoJo Wood's game and be like, what an amazingly explosive athlete or like dynamic fighter. It's largely a hard work and pace thing. She is 1-3 in her last 4, but you beat Luana Carolina, and the 3 fights she had that she lost are not all that indicative of like a decline. Marina Morales has lost 2 in a row, and particularly that Jennifer Maia fight was really, really disappointing because it was like, it's not that Maia is a bad fighter. Maia is a very good fighter. She's a tough out. But at the same time, that felt like the exact stylistic matchup for Moroz to take that next step. And she didn't. It's a fighter that you're longer than, you have the better boxing formula for, who, generally speaking, allows people to control things with the jab. And you couldn't do that. It's a bit weird. I'm going to go with JoJo Wood to just kind of put a pace on her that like outpaces her, wins a decision that way. Pure like volume and activity deal. Moroz is not super dangerous. In terms as a striker, she has some like interesting transitional submissions, but like that's not really how you beat JoJo Wood. In fact, has JoJo Wood ever been submitted? Has JoJo Wood ever been submitted? Oh, okay. She got Grasso and Tyler Santos, of course, duh, and Jennifer Maia. Okay. I don't know. I was thinking this was a little bit better. Jessica Andrade as well. I was thinking this was a little bit better. Oh, and Moroz got her with a submission. I didn't even remember that they fought each other back in 2015. I feel like you can kind of ignore my fight breakdown here. I'm going to stick with my guns. I am going to say, despite this gaffe, I'm still going to pick JoJo Wood. I'm still going to put it out there. I probably picked her way back when she fought Moroz the first time. I blanked it from my memory. I should have looked. I was looking at their recent fights because they had like recent stuff. And I'm like, this doesn't feel like a rematch. And I didn't go looking for it. Oh no. So Moroz is probably going to win. But let's go JoJo. Let's go JoJo. I'm sticking with it. Sticking with it. Let's go. Don't bet. Don't bet based on that. Anyways, odds. Barros is the minus 225 to minus 235 favorite. Wood was plus 176 to plus 195. I should have figured it out by the line there. I really should have. Anyways, links down below to social media and all that good stuff. The video gaming, the Discord server. Please check it out. My massive gaffe here notwithstanding, I'm looking forward to the card and I'm hoping to make some money because there are some dogs that I think are actually pretty live. But the standard warning about betting absolutely applies.